So welcome everybody. Welcome to our February Lunch and Learn. First, Sarah. I'm Carol Bold, a member of Sarah's Palliative Care team. Glad you're here today to join us. Before we start today's session, I'd like to tell you that Lakehead University respectfully acknowledges that its campuses are located on the traditional lands of Indigenous people. Lakehead Thunder Bay is located on the traditional lands of the Fort William First Nation, signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. Lakehead University acknowledges the history that many nations hold in the areas around our campuses and is committed to a relationship with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit based on the principles of mutual trust, respect, reciprocity, and collaboration in the spirit of reconciliation. As a center, Sarah is committed to working towards reconciliation and decolonizing our work, and have committed as a staff to educating ourselves in these areas, both personally and professionally. So for today's session, please feel free to post any questions in the chat box or to speak aloud, but we do have some people who will be looking at the chat box and looking up for your questions. We also have time for questions after the presentation. Note that the presentation will be posted on our website under knowledge translation, and also a link to the recording will be sent to everyone who is registered. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to our session today from the Retirement Homes Regulatory Authority. We have with us today Kaisa Metcalfe. Kaisa is a partnership and engagement specialist with the Retirement Homes Regulation Authority. She is an RPN working in Thunder Bay who brings 20 years of experience to her role. She's worked in both long-term care and retirement homes and has traveled throughout Northern Ontario to audit, educate, and service communities from Kenora to Chapleau. She has also worked as a quality improvement nurse for a pharmacy. So welcome, Kaisa.
Thank you. So Angela, if I can get you to share the presentation. Perfect. So thank you again for this opportunity. I really appreciate the invite to be here today to talk about the role of the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority. I do have two colleagues with me today, and they're going to assist with monitoring the chat and to help with any questions that are being asked. And that's Angela Newman and Rochelle Harbour. Next slide, Angela. So our learning objectives today, we're going to define the role of the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority. We'll outline the different responsibilities of the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority. We'll understand the definition of a licensed retirement home under the Retirement Home Act and understand the difference and similarities between licensed retirement homes and long-term care homes. And then we're going to describe throughout the presentation various consumer protections under the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority. So the role of the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority is the Retirement Regulatory Authority is an independent, not-for-profit regulator that protects and ensures the safety and well-being of seniors living in Ontario licensed retirement homes. So the RHRA's regulatory powers come from the Retirement Home Act, and it was established in 2011. The RHRA puts residents first by ensuring retirement homes follow the rules by sharing unbiased, transparent safety information with seniors and loved ones. So throughout these powers, the RHRA is mandated by the government to license a retirement home, inspect homes to ensure that they are complying with the Act, and to take action when they do not, respond to reports of harm, risk of harm to residents, and then provide information about the Act to residents, the public, and the retirement home operators, and respond to complaints. Thank you. So here's a quick snapshot of the industry under the retirement. So we have 780 licensed retirement homes, mostly for profit and private, nearly 70,000 residents. Homes vary from 6 to over 200 residents, 10 to 11,000 residents waiting for long-term care. 86 is the average age of the residents, and 45% diagnosed with dementia. The number 10 is the average number of care services, but the most common are provision of meals, administration of drugs, and assistance with bathing. So the responsibility of the RHRA is issuing licensing, like we talked about a little bit earlier, inspections, taking action when the home is not in compliance, responding to complaints and reports of harm, working closely with the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility, harnessing strong partnerships with community partners across the province and the industry, and providing information about the Act to residents, partners, public and retirement home operators. If there is something that we can't help with, and can't help with under our mandate, we do have a list of organizations who may be able to help on our website. And we also, as a team, would be able to assist in making those external connections. So the different departments in the RHRA is client services and complaints. So this is conducted through the RHRA website, by phone or written correspondence, and includes general inquiries, mandatory reports of suspected harm or risk of harm, and complaints and potential complaints. Retirement homes are required to have a process, and the RHRA also has a process to respond to the complaints about the retirement home. Risk and analytics, there's a slide next on that one. Under licensing, so licensing processes, the applications completed, licensing assessments, competency to operate the home, past conduct, a licensing decision, so issue with conditions or refuse of license. License issued are evergreen, no annual renewal required. However, if a transfer of ownership requires a new license. Registrar may revoke license if no longer meets the requirement or impose condition on the license, and a retirement home may voluntarily surrender license. Inspections, we will go into a little bit more details coming up on all the different inspections. Enforcement is the retirement home. The RHRA oversees compliance and enforcement actions of the purpose for protecting residents and ensuring that the retirement homes are operated in accordance with the Act and the regulations. The RHRA follows a regime of progressive compliance and enforcement actions, from education to warning letters to enforcement orders, depending on the nature, severity, and history of the licensee's non-compliance. A registrar's order includes orders that revoke or refuse a license, orders to apply or cease operating a retirement home, administrative monetary penalties, compliance orders requiring a licensee to take or refrain from certain actions to be in compliance with the Act, and management orders requiring a licensee to retain managers to administer their homes. Partnerships, so this is the department that we work in, so working closely with public health units, HCCSS, Ontario Health, Fire, and others to support homes in crisis. Partnerships with the home are carried out through compliance support, and then emergency funds allows residents to make claims for compensation, and the RHRA to make payment to support residents under certain emergency circumstances. So under risk and analytics, so risk is to assess risk residents using data and information, inform regulatory operations, develop and maintain a risk model. And then under analytics is to conduct data analysis to identify industry trends, perform data analysis on operational programs to assess impact, and then managing the data sharing in partnership. So here is first inspection. So under inspections, the RHRA carries out several kinds of inspections, including routine. So routine inspections are done at least every 3 years on all homes. These inspections check homes' compliance with critical requirements from our legislation. Mandatory reports. So an inspection is carried out when the RHRA receives a report about harm or risk of harm to a resident. Compliance is the follow-up on the home that have not been compliant. Complaints and licensing. Inspections are the follow-up to complaints and to check whether an unlicensed facility is operating as a retirement home. And all these final inspections are posted on the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority's database, except for those inspections that are done on unlicensed retirement. So under complaints, when a complaint is first filed with the RHRA, you and others providing the information are protected. The RHRA may take action against those who discourage complaints, threaten or retaliate against complaints to the person who files the complaints, and this may include fines or even prosecution. The RHRA makes every effort to address the complaint in a timely manner. The registrar considers all information submitted to arrive to a decision. Some complaints may take more time to review and conclude. Once the decision has been made, you will receive a written letter explaining the actions that were taken. And if your complaint leads to an inspection, an inspector will be sent to the home to conduct that inspection. Once the inspection is completed, a copy of the draft inspection report is provided to the retirement home, and the operator has 10 days to respond. The final inspection report, which does not contain confidential information, is posted on the RHRA's database and in the retirement home. The RHRA may carry out a follow-up inspection to see that the home has come into compliance. So the definition of a retirement home is a residential complex, part of a residential complex and occupied primarily by a person who is 65 years of age or older, and at least 6 persons not related to the operator, and an operator makes at least 2 care services available directly or indirectly to the resident. A retirement home resident are mixed of fully independent to those requiring complex care services. Care services, so resident can purchase care services directly from the retirement home or choose an external care provider of their choice. It can be a mix of large chains, small chains, and independents. And it also is a mix of high-end, mid-range, and low-income residents. Some of the exemptions under a retirement home license, what would be exempted, is homes that are governed or funded by some of the legislations that are exempt are Homes for Special Care Act, Public Hospitals Act, regulatory exemptions for specific programs like supportive housing programs, residential treatment programs funded by the HCCSS, the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Long-Term Care, Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative funded by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So here is just a very quick snapshot of all the care services that are part of the licensing. So there's 13 care services. safety standards and safeguards that the Act includes for these minimum standards. So like we discussed, out of the 3 main ones, there's 13 care services here for them to use in the home. So long-term care versus retirement homes. So although retirement homes and long-term care homes both have communal living comprised primarily of seniors, there are several different key differences between them. So a retirement home is generally people with health needs, which can be accommodated via personal care services. These include dementia care. Residents have a choice to select the retirement home versus long-term care. One must be eligible, have an eligibility criteria, requires 24-hour nursing care supervision, and for placement, the long-term care goes through the HCCSS. The retirement home resident care services can be purchased directly from the retirement home, or they may choose an external care service provider by a publicly funded health system or private pay system. HCCSS, so the LHIN CCAC, can provide home care services in a retirement home. Some operators have mixed use of the home, so part of their facility operating as a retirement home and the other part is long-term care, and then other supporting housing facilities can be part. So residents, a retirement home range from highly independent, no care services, to those more vulnerable requiring a range of care services. And then in long-term care, we have more complex needs. They're more vulnerable and they have 24-hour nursing care and supervision. So the Resident Bill of Rights, the Retirement Home Act under Section 51 details the universal rights every resident of a retirement home is entitled to by law. So non-compliance with the Resident Bill of Rights is non-compliance with the Retirement Home Act. A resident of a retirement home may enforce the Resident Bill of Rights against the licensee of a home as though the resident and the licensee had entered a contract, under which the licensee has agreed to fully respect and promote the rights set out in the Residence Bill of Rights. So the Retirement Home Database is an interactive index for every licensed retirement home within the province of Ontario. This handy tool allows prospect residents the ability to filter their search for future homes by the license status, care services, size, home, and geographical location. The Retirement Home Database. So upon selecting the home, so the licensing information includes the license number, the date the license was first issued, any conditions on their license, the licensee's name, their address, and the contact person, and as well as a summary of the most recent inspection, whether or not it was triggered by a mandatory report. So other resources and information that are on the RHRA's website would be the COVID-19 dashboard, so outbreaks by home, how to start a resident council, resident network, and compliance assistant modules. So those are the CAMs, and those are interactive education tools for the home operators. So the legal duty to report harm to the RHRA is known as mandatory reporting. Anyone who sees or suspects a situation that harms or puts a resident at risk reported to the RHRA. Abuse or neglect of a resident, improper or incompetent treatment or care of a resident, unlawful conduct, misuse or misappropriate of a resident's money includes retirement home staff, family members, visitors, doctors, nurses, social workers. Even if the information is confidential, Reports can be made anonymously. The Retirement Home Act includes a whistleblowing protection. The RHRA investigates mandatory reports immediately. All inspections report findings are publicly posted on the RHRA's website. So contact the RHRA if you suspect a home is operating illegally as a retirement home, suspect harm or abuse or risk of harm and abuse to a resident living in a retirement home, assistance or questions regarding the regulations in the retirement home, and residents' access to emergency funds. So here's a quick on how to connect with the RHRA. So by telephone, by email, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Is there any questions?
Hi, Kaisa. Kaisa,
Hi.
it's Valerie. Hi, wonderful
How are
to
you,
see you.
Valerie?
I'm great. Wonderful to see you today. And thank you so much for this presentation and information and overview. Such quality content that you've provided, and hopefully that we'll have access to the slide deck. One question I might have is, with regards to, I don't know if it's the Regulation Authority or more specifically the Retirement Homes Act, if you're able to answer. I know it was indicated of the care requirements, and I'm just wondering if there is anything in the Act pertaining to palliative care.
So Angela, do you guys want to answer to that one?
Sure. There's nothing specific about palliative care, right? Palliative care is not considered a care service, so it is not specific from that point of view. However, if a resident is in a palliative, palliative, they may have certain needs or requirements, right? So they may be getting those needs, care needs met through an external care provider. So that might be happening. They may be getting certain care needs through the home, and that might be happening. So it will really depend on what those care needs are and if the home is able to deliver them. But it's not a care service. So it may be care that's being given through medication, and the home is delivering medication as a care service. Or it could be something beyond that an external care provider is coming in to deliver the care. And at that point, it's outside of the retirement home because somebody else is, all care that comes in through an ECP, external care provider, is between the care provider and the resident.
Okay, so it's an external.
Valerie? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And specifically, it's interesting of the stats that you had shared as well. And given the number of clients in retirement homes that are awaiting long-term care and presented to dementia, and so I currently work with the Regional Palliative Care Program, Northwestern Ontario Regional Palliative Care Program out of St. Joe's, and I have contact with retirement homes and support and helping to assist with providing education and supports to homes and frontline staff as well. So just wanted to get some clarity around that. So that's great.
I think also, like, it's not a type of care that's commonly given. Like a lot of staff in homes don't have they're not familiar with it. They don't have the ability to do that care. So they may be reaching out to say, we need some help with this, right? So that education that you're providing is fantastic.
Great. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions for Kaisa or her team?
I'd like to thank you all for the presentation as well, and raising awareness. I wasn't aware of your service, so thank you. Valerie hit on a couple of the questions that I was wondering as well, in terms of the Long-Term Care Home Act, how it does have palliative care education in there specifically. So thank you for clarifying around that. And I guess, yeah, also the numbers of people waiting for long-term care kind of struck me as well. So is that sort of the situation when the residents' care needs are getting kind of beyond what the retirement homes can handle. And so those folks are on waiting lists for long-term care. And I'm just wondering, kind of in the interim, I guess that's just where my mind goes, where so many people need more care. And I'm just not sure if you have any insight on that, about how they manage that. Or
Absolutely. So yeah, with that, that's where those care services come in. So the resident can either get their care services that are provided through the home, or they would go through the HCCSS and have a coordinator assigned to them and bring in those care services. And then of course we have like the wait at home programs that they do have in the retirement homes as they wait for long-term care, which gives them more access to more care services in the home through the HCCS provider. So a lot of the times you'll see them have care through services through the home and also through the HCCS. So it's extra services to keep them safe and cared for until they can reach their final destination.
Approximately 50%, just, or maybe even just creeping up over that 50% mark of residents in licensed homes in the province receive HCCS services in general.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from our participants today? Okay, well, hearing none, thank you, Kaisa, very much for coming, along with your team members, Rachel and Angela. We appreciate your time today. We appreciate all you coming today. Thank you very much. And as I said, this recording will be posted, or you'll be getting a link to it. This presentation will be posted, and look for our next Lunch and Learn, which will take place in April, and more information about that will be coming out soon. So thank you very much. We appreciate your participation, and see you at the next Lunch and Learn.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, ladies.